Both John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan joined CamBR to give updates on Brock Purdy, and they attack it from two different perspectives. You're going to be able to hear from John Lynch kind of speak directly to the injury and give an update on where Brock is currently at, giving a little bit more detail and context behind that. But you're also going to hear from Kyle Shanahan just kind of discuss the things that Brock had to work through this year and just kind of provide a little bit more context behind how Brock Purdy performed. We know there's a lot of conversation about Brock and how he's played this year and what he should get paid and all those different types of things. So it's always nice to kind of hear the perspective from the guys that actually matter, the general manager and the head coach. Take a listen to what they had to say on CamBR right here.
But first and foremost, did have to ask about your quarterback. I don't know if we ever got the official results of the MRI and why he's sitting out this Sunday.
Yeah, I mean it's really nothing more than like when you hit your funny bone. He did that, and when you get an NFL helmet in the wrong place, it like irritated the nerves a little. But there were about 10 minutes. I get word. I had worked my way down to the locker room, and all I'm hearing is first it's his hand, and then the report comes in, via the guys in security from the sideline. Hey, now it's his elbow, and I'm going, oh my goodness, But then shortly thereafter, hey, he just got dinged on the elbow, caused some numbness, and so everything's all right. Brock's going to be fine, and just a deal where it's got to quiet down.
So no Brock this Sunday. It's going to be Josh Dobbs starting for you guys. And I just wanted to know, with Brock's season done, what is something that really impressed you about him this season? And what's one thing you like for him to improve upon in 2025?
Well, I'm excited to, Brock to get away for a little bit and him and I get back together and watch this whole season of tape where we can really just dissect it. Because this year, Brock's numbers and stuff aren't as good as his last 2 years, but of course they're not. He's been missing a starting left tackle. He's been missing an NFL MVP at running back. He's been missing the backup running back and the third string running back. He's been missing a starting X. He's had to go through a lot of stuff out there that's made this season much bigger of a challenge, where your numbers will change when that's the case. But I don't think Brock's playing much different than he has when he was killing it numbers-wise those 2 years. And so be able to watch him go through some adversity and be in some tougher situations. And, I think that's why he's had to scramble a little more. He's found ways to make some plays with his legs. He's had some tough games that he's had to bounce back from, which he always does. But I think Brock's had a hell of a year. There's always things that we can improve on, which we'll look into all that when we get back here in the offseason. But it's never – you always want everything to go right. But I do think when things aren't perfect and they seem like things aren't going the right way, I think sometimes in the long run it can be one of the best things that happen to you if you learn from it and get better. And this was a season that the first season Brock had to go through where things weren't exactly right. The guys around him did get hurt. Our team wasn't quite as good. We were in some tougher situations, and to watch Brock go through that and handle it the way he did just proves again, like he has for all 3 of these years, that we got the right guy.
So first of all, it's good to hear that the injury isn't much of a concern. Again, he kind of described it as like a funny bone, getting hit in the funny bone. I think we've all had that happen. And, it's probably like a bruise and kind of sore to move. And I don't know if Brock would have played in this game or not. Even if he was healthy, maybe he would have, just to try to kind of, again, continue to build for his resume and just keep fighting and attacking. So maybe he would have, but he's not going to play. It's going to be Josh Dobbs who gets a start. And I think that's good for Dobbs too, to be able to get the reps, to kind of be able to use that to maybe transition himself into getting a maybe Sam Darnold type job. We'll see. But also, it was good to hear Kyle Shanahan just kind of explain in a little bit more nuance of kind of the struggles that Brock has gone through, because it's so easy to assign blame to one person in this sport when it's 11 guys, it's a coach, you're going up against defenses that are paid millions of dollars to stop you. There's a lot of variables involved of why situations go down the way they do. And it unfortunately is simplified, I feel like, just like an elementary level. Like, I don't like talking about football like that. It's probably why I'm not considered a hot take person, because I think football deserves to be discussed with nuance. I believe football deserves to be discussed from a full perspective, multiple perspectives, different ways of looking at it, trying to put yourself in the shoes of the offensive lineman, of the running back, of the wide receiver, of the quarterback, of the head coach, of the play caller, to be able to determine, like, all right, how did this situation happen? Because there's a lot of cause and effect, but in football, we tend to just focus on what occurred, the outcome, and less more about like what led up to that outcome happening. And while we can be responsible for the things that have happened, there's also other things that are responsible for those things that have happened. And again, people will call that, oh, you're just making excuses. And I don't think it's making excuses. I think painting the full picture and presenting full context and nuance isn't making excuses. That's the only way, in my opinion, to be able to properly rationalize and analyze something. If you're only cherry picking what fits your belief or what fits your narrative, all you're doing is a disservice to yourself and a disservice to the people who tune in to listen to you. So you have to be able to process through multiple lenses. You have to be able to process through lenses that you don't maybe agree with, to be able to be like, all right, let me look at it from maybe this perspective. Might not be my perspective, but it's a perspective worth kind of evaluating through. And that's, to me, how you come to being right on situations opposed to just fighting to be right. So with the Brock Purdy situation, like I said, it was great to hear Kyle Shanahan kind of be able to go in depth, talk a little bit further about some of the things that he's been working against. Clearly, not having a lot of key pieces on the offense is going to impact anyone, especially a 24-year-old who just turned 25, only in his second year as a full-time starter. The pressure of the world on top of coming off a Super Bowl loss, but also playing for a contract. I just don't think anyone really considers these things. Like, this guy just went to the mountaintop. They lost. We've seen how this whole team is dealing with the emotional letdown of that Super Bowl. Like, I think Brock is doing his best to fight through the emotional letdown, fight through that situation, and also fight through the fact that he's playing for his financial life right now. He's playing for a contract. And there's a lot of stress that comes along with that, because you're not playing as freely. You're like, every mistake, as we've seen, either either subtracts $10 million from your worth, or it adds 10 million. Like, that's how it's discussed. So when you find yourself in these situations where you're trying to be perfect, you can press. And I think that's part of what we have seen from Brock in some of these late game moments, where he's trying to do whatever he can to get a win, and he's pressing a little bit. And I think that's fine. I think that's natural. I think one of Brock's superpowers is he's been kind of seemed like none of that stuff has affected him in the past. But I think, again, it's important to note he is a human being who is also going through other things that people aren't associating with. Like I said, a contract negotiation, which has forced a guy who is already under a microscope to be put under even further of a microscope for how he's performed. And every throw, every interception, every mistake, everything is over analyzed into the realm of, well, you can or you can't pay this guy. Come on, man. Like, remove yourself from this situation and just recognize that this dude's 24 years old. Could you imagine? Like, I don't know about you guys. I'm 35. I'm a man. If I was putting myself in the shoes of Brock Purdy as a 24-year-old and dealing with, like, me personally, I would crumble under Brock Purdy's situation. I would not be able to handle it. There would be too much stress, too much anxiety, too much pressure. It would just be too much for me to be able to go out and do my job and play at a high level, because there's too much other things. And that's just me. I know that about myself. So, like, when I think about Brock and I think about like evaluating him through, like I said, the multiple different lenses, it's like, man, like you have to weight the fact of all the pressure that he is having to play through. He isn't just some happy go lucky story anymore. People are actively rooting against him to fail. And they pinpoint every time he fails to be able to say, see, I told you so. I told you this is why you don't pay him. I told you this is why he's not a good quarterback. It's a lot of pressure to play under. Whether you they make millions of dollars. Well, Brock doesn't make millions of dollars. He gets paid less than college quarterbacks right now. He gets paid less than his backups. But again, he's being evaluated as a $60 million quarterback. And I get it. They have to pay him eventually. But that's a tough spot to be in. That's a tough spot to be in for a 24-year-old who just turned 25. And I just think, like, what happened to the grace? What happened to allowing these guys to learn and grow and go through adversity and go through these learning moments and just be there with them and just be like, all right, yeah, it's not ideal. It's not the best that we've seen from Brock, and he's made some mistakes, but also understand that that's what support looks like. Support comes through when you're not at your best. You can't just support them when they're playing well just because it doesn't fit your narrative of that he's not a good quarterback, because you look like an idiot when he's playing exceptionally well and you're like, well, yeah, well, he's still not a good quarterback, because you sound like an idiot. But that's why when he's not playing well, you can see who's raising their hand and saying, see, I told you. It's very, very easy to see. But you know what's more powerful? What's more powerful is being able to rationalize everything and to be able to support a guy who's going through some issues and be able to be like, hey, we got your back. We know it's not ideal. We know there are things to clean up, and we know there are things to improve upon. But we also understand you've done a ton for us. We've seen how good you can be, and we know you're going to get better. So we're going to be here. We're going to support you. And until you give us a real reason to be like, yeah, this might not be the guy, we're going to keep supporting you. And I don't think Brock has given us any reason to believe he can't be that guy. So that's just my thoughts on it. I know we're going to have these continued conversations about Brock ongoing forever. It is what it is, but those are just my thoughts on it. But you guys let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.